But once we really start to depend on our partner or let them into a deeper part of our inner world or really start to integrate our lives with theirs in a meaningful, long-lasting way, that's often when attachment challenges come up.
I got a glitch. Oh, it just hit
Hello,
me
my
now.
loves, and welcome back. It's Ash, your truth-bombing fairy godmother for everything love, dating, and relationships. Today's video is long overdue and one that I've been asked to cover multiple times now, which are attachment styles. Understanding our own attachment style and the attachment style of our partner or prospective partner is so very important because attachment styles truly do form the basis of how we bond with and connect with everyone in our lives, both romantic partners and friends. I absolutely love attachment theory, so I'm really excited to dive into this one by just giving an overall breakdown of each attachment style and what each style might mean for you. But first, if you would like to see new love, dating, and relationship videos every single week, then I highly suggest subscribing to my channel by tapping that button below. And as always, if you found this video helpful at all, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Okay, so let's start out by defining what attachment theory is. Attachment theory was first developed and defined by John Bowlby, who was a British psychologist and psychiatrist, who observed that the way we attach to our primary caregivers as infants and children essentially sets up the blueprint for the way in which we attach to others and form relationships in our adult life as well. And he identified 4 main attachment styles, and I will be giving an overview and breakdown of each of these. And they are securely attached, anxiously attached, and then 2 separate types of avoidantly attached, which are fearful or anxious avoidant and dismissive avoidant. And I think this has also been referred to as disorganized attachment as well. I think that's kind of an outdated term now. And while I'm explaining each of these attachment styles, and if you don't already know which one you are, see if you can determine which one you identify with most. Securely attached infants would have had a caregiver who was really tuned in, who was really emotionally responsive to them, who was consistently available, who was very flexible and able to adapt their style to suit the temperament of their child, and who would have made really quick adjustments when mistakes were made. And as a result, that infant would likely grow up to be very trusting and very easily able to form bonds and attachments with others, very communicative and responsive, etc. So in theory, securely attached individuals should have the least trouble with intimacy and closeness with others. Anxious attached infants would have had a caregiver who was inconsistently available to them, meaning that perhaps sometimes they were really tuned in, but other times they weren't very tuned in at all. And as a result of that inconsistency, the baby gets left in this dysregulated state due to their lack of trust that their caregiver will be there when they need them, which of course would naturally create a lot of anxiety. And as adults, they become really fearful and anxious at any sign of disconnection or abandonment or pulling away from others. Avoidantly attached, which can be split up into the 2 separate categories of either fearful or anxious and dismissive, are infants who would have had a caregiver who was not really physically or emotionally present for them at all. And as a result, that infant and child would have had to learn how to regulate themselves and would have had to become super self-reliant because they would have been pretty confident that there wasn't going to be anyone there to care for them in the way that they needed. And as you can imagine, this would be a really effective survival technique, really, while they're young, but as they get older and grow up into adults, this can be really challenging when it comes to trying to form healthy relationships. And this is the attachment style I am most familiar with because it's what I am. However, I am the more fearful, anxious avoidant as opposed to dismissive avoidant. So when I sense someone else, particularly within an intimate relationship, trying to get really close or trying to connect with me, I often get uncomfortable and pull away. However, if I sense someone else pulling away or retracting from me emotionally, I get anxious and will start spiraling. So I think of this attachment style as just a really deep mistrust and fear of getting hurt or fear of losing our own identities or being forced out of our comfort zones, etc. We're runners and we're easily scared off. Whereas dismissive avoidants are extremely self-reliant and generally claim not to find much value in relationships or connecting with others at all. Whereas fearful or anxious avoidants like myself, we depend more on human connection, but still often avoid it, even if unintentionally, due to our fear and anxiety. Whereas dismissive avoidants are much more emotionally stoic, if you will, and don't really report or have at least been able to shut out a lot of that fear and anxiety. And let me be clear that this is not a perfect science. And what I mean by that is that a lot of us may find that we don't perfectly fit into one category or one attachment style, and many of us may find that we identify with multiple attachment styles or a combination of a few, and that is totally normal and really, really common. And I know for me, something that used to really confuse me a lot was that the caregiver or parenting description of what formed the basis of my attachment style, anxious avoidant, didn't entirely fit. I know I had a caregiver who was really loving and attentive and would have been really present for my needs as a baby. However, what I've come to understand through various conversations with professionals is that our attachment style isn't necessarily a direct reflection of our parents' caregiving abilities, but rather it can more so come down to how we, as the child, interpreted their caregiving. And I think making that distinction is really important, because having an anxious or avoidant attachment style doesn't necessarily mean that we had bad parents. And further, our caregiver's presence or availability can evolve throughout our childhood, and I think that was certainly the case for me. I know that my mom was very emotionally available to me as a baby, but as I got older, what I needed from her changed, and she was just simply not able to meet the needs that came with those changes. And I ultimately did, I suppose, interpret that as emotional abandonment and did have to become very self-reliant, but later on in childhood, not necessarily in infancy. So anyway, I just want to make it clear that attachment styles are very nuanced and there's a lot of complexities, and it's not as simple or as cut and dry as it's sometimes made out to be. So if you find yourself not necessarily identifying with one attachment style, or you feel you're a combination of multiple, or you feel like the description of the caregiver's presence or availability doesn't quite fit, that's all perfectly normal. Now, let's move on to the way our individual attachment styles might have an impact on our adult relationships. And something really fascinating about attachment issues, and something that Sylvie, not even going to try to say her last name because I will butcher it, so I will just put it here on the screen. Something that she talks about a lot in her work, which primarily focuses on attachment theory within the context of intimate relationships. And that is the fact that attachment issues often don't come to the surface during those beginning stages or during the honeymoon phase of a relationship. Instead, conflicts or challenges pertaining to our attachment styles often come up once we move on to the more serious, committed phase of a relationship. And this could even be true in the context of a friendship as well. And that's because during those beginning stages, you're just so excited and caught up in each other's magic and wanting to embed yourself in each other's cells that there's just limited room for those deeper individual attachment challenges to reveal themselves. But once we really start to depend on our partner or let them into a deeper part of our inner world, or really start to integrate our lives with theirs in a meaningful, long-lasting way, that's often when attachment challenges come up. And sadly, that's often when a lot of relationships end, because without that awareness of our attachment styles and the unique challenges and discomforts that that might bring up for us, we simply think that, well, I guess there just must be something wrong with this relationship. So for example, when my attachment issues first came up in my relationship with my fiance, it was very tempting for me to think that maybe I wouldn't have these challenges or struggles being in a serious, committed, intimate relationship if I was with someone else. That perhaps these anxieties, doubts, fears, etc. etc., were a sign that I was with the wrong person. However, the truth is that my underlying attachment struggles and anxious avoidant tendencies exist and live within me and would occur no matter who I was with. And stressing this is important because this idea that there is a perfect pairing between attachment styles or that certain attachment styles simply can't be together at all is just simply not true. A secure, healthy, loving relationship can be had between any combination of attachment styles or any pairing, so long as there is a awareness and a really genuine commitment to call ourselves out when we're behaving in a way that doesn't strive for a more securely attached relationship. So to anxiously attached or an anxious attached and a fearful avoidant attached or dismissive avoidant attached can absolutely have a securely attached relationship so long as both parties are aware of the ways in which their inbuilt individual attachment styles cause them to either cling to, shut down, or avoid the other, and then therefore actively work to challenge and rewrite those scripts. It is absolutely possible to flip the narrative and choose to show up in your relationship in a way that authentically strengthens and deepens your bond with your partner, while of course still maintaining healthy boundaries, so long as there is self-awareness and introspection and the willingness to learn and do the work on both sides. Okay everyone, I'm gonna go ahead and stop there, just given that this video was just meant to be a really brief overview of each of the attachment styles and just give you a little bit of a starting point to perhaps delve into your own attachment style more deeply. Or if you would like me to do more videos on this topic, I could perhaps make a video on each of the attachment styles, specifically anxiously attached and the two types of avoidantly attached, and can delve into each of them more in depth and talk about some of the unique challenges that those attachment styles might bring up for you within your relationships. So feel free to let me know in the comment section down below if that's something that you would like me to do. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. As always, I love you all so very much, and I will see you all next week.
Tell me what was in that stuff you gave me. I think I like it. In fact, it made me high.